Rob, thank you so much for coming on the Easy Prey podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So can you give myself and the audience a little bit of background about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Rob Karras, and I work for CISA. I've been at CISA for 13 years, and I run our attack surface evaluation branch, which consists of penetration testing, red teaming, vulnerability scanning, and attack surface management.
So for those that don't know, what is CISA?
CISA is the government agency that protects our country for cybersecurity threats and infrastructure. So we were signed into law a few years ago, and we're the newest federal agency, and our responsibility is cybersecurity and infrastructure security.
Newer than Space Force?
Federal agency. So that I would say that's DoD, and we're federal agency. So let's go with that.
Okay, that works for me. I just want to be able to say Space Force on recording.
Absolutely.
So how did you get into this field? Was it something that you always wanted to do, or was it just the natural progression of your schooling and education and career?
I think a little bit of both. So I graduated college, found myself a federal employee doing system administration stuff on the Unix side. And then I transitioned over to some compliance work. And right about that time, I was working for DISA, Defense Information Systems Agency. They had a call out for young technical people that wanted to start the first red team and the first computer emergency response team. So I raised my hand and I was selected. I was lucky enough to start those two ventures, and the one went on to be morphed into the NSA red team, and one morphed off to the DoD CERT. So I've been doing this for 30 years.
Nice. And so for those that don't know, can you explain when you say red team? I know what that means, but the audience is like going, is this a football team? Like what's this red team stuff?
Yeah. So a lot of people have different definitions of it, but how we define it, and I could go into our penetration testing team too. But basically, we have a bunch of security professionals, call them professional hackers, that break into companies' networks. So we physically, not physically, but we attack them through electronic means, through phishing accounts, or attacks through social media, through various services that are open on their entities on the internet. And we get in and we embed ourselves in there. And then we have different measurables and metrics that we test. And then at the end, we're basically, our red teams basically last 90 days. The last 2 or 3 days, we work with their senior personnel and their security operations center, and we train them on how we got in, where we saw them, what we did, and how they could improve themselves. So basically, it's an offensive team trying to break in and show security awareness to companies.
And all with the company's permission, correct?
Correct. Everything I do. So we have, and that's funny. So when I came here, in 2010, I was like raring to go, and but it took me like a year and a half to actually get a network installed, and then it took me longer than that to get all the legal documents involved. So we have standard legal. Now they're standard, but at the time they weren't, legal agreements with our customers that they sign and we countersign before we do anything.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you're doing stuff with permission. You're not. I don't want to say not really hacking, but
correct.
You're not doing anything illegal in the process of trying to help somebody out.
Absolutely, and I don't want any of the people that work for me or myself to end up in jail. So.
No, nobody wants that. And so let's kind of shift and talk a little bit about kind of what the current trends are and what you're helping companies with. And then we'll talk a little bit about what consumers should be looking for. So what are the kind of the current corporate threat profiles that we're looking at?
So from threat profiles, it varies from industry to industry. But the big thing to know is that whatever industry you're in or critical infrastructure sector, you're basically under attack 24 hours a day, especially with automation and getting more into AI. It's just getting more and more persistent. So various actors will focus on various sector groups. So, but a lot of it starts with phishing, and starts with social engineering. That's still the number one way that we're seeing, and that my red teams and my penetration testing teams are able to successfully attack and get into the inside of a federal agency, state and local government, or a company.
And so it's people on your team calling up and getting a little bit of information, using that parlay and to get a little bit more information to gain access to the networks.
Yeah, so I'll talk about one of our latest adventures. So we were working on a penetration test, and we did some research on the entity, and we found out that they have a program where they offer students tours, to come and see. So we politely emailed and had a nice interaction with the staff saying, hey, we'd like to come and see a tour, and we're excited about this. And several emails, 10, 15 emails back and forth. Finally, they said, okay, we'll fill out this web portal, and let us know who's coming. And we said, oh, we're having problems accessing this web portal. Can we send you a PDF, or can we send you something, or can we post something that you could download? And since we had already built that trust, they agreed to it, and they downloaded a file, and it looked like it had a bunch of students' names on it, but in the background it had a nice payload, and we were able to execute and get on their network. So yeah, it's all about building that trust and building that rapport and doing your due diligence and investigating your target.
Yeah, that to me, that's always the scary part, is that nothing of that interaction seemed inherently red flaggy in a sense.
Right. There was nothing. It was good natured, and people want to help, right? And that's one of the vulnerabilities. Everybody's willing, especially when you have a program where you're thinking, oh, we're going to educate some the future staff or future of our country, and we're going to bring them in and show them all the great things we do. So now naturally your guard's lowered.
Yeah, I always think about it. There were times that I was working for a small company, and there was one day that the receptionist was out, so I was trying to help out and answer the phone. And anytime someone called and wanted to be transferred to somebody, I'd be like, well, who are you? Why are you calling? Yeah, and just being the paranoid person that I was, and I'm like, it's almost that like good security is the antithesis to good customer service in a way.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, you want to be, and it's hard to find that balance, right? Because you want to get the person off, because if you're filling in, you might have 2 or 3 calls coming in, or 4 calls, and you might want to just be able to forward it, and they want to get to who they're trying to talk to, but then you want to do like a first screening, and it's like, where's that fine line, that how much do you question them before you pass it on?
So, when you're doing your pen testing, you're attacking clients that are willing. Are hackers kind of using those same techniques when they're attacking corporations themselves?
Right. Yeah. So we go to a lot of conferences, and meet with a lot of people, and understand their tactics and techniques, and we put our own in. So we don't follow one APT, or follow like their playbook line by line. We basically have our own, but the playbooks are pretty similar, right? Hey, what's our scope? What's our target? What's our time frame? What are we trying to get? And then who's the easiest? Where's the low hanging fruit? And how can we get in and get out without notice? Or if we want to stay entrenched for a long time, where do we stay entrenched? And what's the best place to do that? And how long do we set our beacons to call back for? Do we have them set up for 1 week, 1 month? 17 days, et cetera. But the playbooks are all the same. Now, the tools that we use, we have our own tools. I'm sure everybody else has their own tools. But one thing that's really interesting, and one of the good things that we have coming out of this, we have a lot of data. So we can see data, and we could understand, where vendors are successful and where they're not successful, and help them become successful without ever having to, put anything out in public. A couple of things lately are, and it seems like, especially with our phishing payloads, and this, if you go back to antivirus, you look at antivirus, about 4 to 5 years, you can reuse the same techniques or same payloads. So what we were using 4 or 5 years ago haven't been working. But because vendors, they only have so much that they could put in their EDR or their machines and defenses, that they rotate them out. And so now what we were using 4 or 5 years ago is becoming successful again. And you wouldn't think it, but because of AI and automation, we're able to be able to use those payloads. It's not manual. We have automation where we could just, it doesn't hurt just to click a button and see if these payloads work. And that's one of the interesting facts of, and one of the great studies that's coming out of this. So we could warn vendors and warn other people about these trends that we're seeing. And then, the vendors can take action, and it just doesn't protect one company. It'll protect, everybody that's using it.
Yeah. So with the kind of the rise of AI and computational power and organized crime with access to large sums of money, has this really been have you seen a significant escalation in what the threat actors are doing in the last few years?
Not yet, but we're starting to see it, and we're starting to see people pre-position themselves and understand, the AI models, and get the AI models ready. So when there is a earthquake and or a flood overseas, right? They don't have to take the time to actually go and program that. It's already programmed to hit certain high headlines and thresholds, and then automatically set that. So we haven't seen it actively happen, but we know that people are pre-positioning and getting ready for that day, and it's only a matter of maybe they're ready now, and the next incident, and could be right now we're getting ready for a federal shutdown, right? It could be something related to that. Hey, the Congress is passing a bill, or they're not, and click here for the latest. We just don't know, but it's on its way if it's not here right now.
Yeah, that to me is always one of the things that I hate most about the scammers, is when they're leveraging natural disasters and horrible events to line their own pockets. It's like that's particularly disturbing to me.
It really is, and it's sad, but it happens, right? And they prey on human nature and our vulnerabilities, and our sense of trust, right? And manipulating our emotions. So if they can get you to be emotional for a second and just click that without thinking, that they win.
Is that some of the challenge in that? I think most people think, from the technical side, well, if I have the right antivirus, if we have the right network protections, if we have the right technology in place, we're safe. But then there's this big human component that is a lot more squishy, for the lack of a better term. It seems like we have a good idea how to address the technology side. How do we address the squishy human side of things?
Yeah, so that's wonderful. We train them, but training can only go so far, and there, you keep people get trained to a certain level, and you can't train anymore, right? You know what you know, and at that point, it turns to training them on what to do if they feel like they've been scammed, or if they've clicked the phishing link, and train them and exercise what the company policy is, or how to react. Do they know who to call? Do they know who to email? Do they know what to do when they notice an incident, or something's not working right, or they did something wrong, right? There's no shame in it. It happens. It's our human nature.
Yeah.
But how do you react to it? And the sooner you react, the better chance your IT team or your staff has of protecting your company and your assets. So I think it shifts to more the exercising and training on what to do next instead of detecting the phishing email from the Nigerian prince, because phishing emails now they're so good. I mean, it looks like it's coming from corporate, right?
Yeah.
So
Is it, how much of a challenge is it when you guys are doing your, not for you guys, but for the companies, when you're doing your pen testing, to get the employees to report things that are suspicious and report the links? Are they just clicking on it and, oh gosh, I've realized I've done something I shouldn't have done, and keeping their mouths shut? Or are people getting better at saying, oh, I think I did something I shouldn't have done?
yep, that's great. So I'll tell you, about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, nobody was reporting it. Everybody, it was almost you were a social outcast if you did that. But people have accepted and learned that that's not right. That we need to, you don't embrace this, but you recognize that it happens, and that if you report it and the company can handle it in a certain way, that's socially acceptable now. Where before, if you click something, it was almost like, oh my gosh, look what he did, or look what she did. And now it's like, hey, okay, we deal with this as a company. We have some statistics that show the improvement of internal users or people within companies actually reporting it to the IT staff. So we have seen those numbers increase over the last 8 or 9 years, which is promising. They're not where we need them to be, and we're trying to figure out if that's because they didn't realize that it was a phishing link or something that they clicked on. But the stats are getting better.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of the things that I'm trying to do with the podcast, is trying to destigmatize people that have fallen prey to scams and whatnot. Because I think the more people that talk about what happened and how it happened, other people are more willing to talk about it. And as we start having these conversations, the person at work is going to be like, oh gosh, hey Bob, I clicked the link, as opposed to how long can I hide before someone figures out that I clicked the link?
Yeah, right. And I'm not proud of it, but it was about 4 years ago. There was a gentleman at a 7-Eleven that skimmed my credit card right in front of me. Not proud of it. It happened. My bank called me, and I got a new credit card right away. But it happens, and you just accept it, and you face reality, and you don't hide from it. So
yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. I often do ask my guests, has something happened to you in the past? And I think it's important for people to hear that you have, people that are in this industry, people that are in this field, that, if we can't get it right 100% of the time, Bob, who has no formal training in this, shouldn't feel bad that he wasn't able to protect himself 100% of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And me being a cybersecurity professional for 30 years experience, I'm like, really? That just happened to me, but it happened. And luckily, I was able to, call my bank, and my bank texted me, and I got a new credit card, and I had no money taken off my account, which was great. So, how you react, I think, is just as important as facing the reality that it happened.
Yeah. So what should people be doing? So I guess there's two different sides to this, because what businesses should be doing is probably fundamentally different than what consumers should be doing. Let's talk business, and then we'll talk consumers. If a corporation falls victim to a breach, what should they be doing? Who should they be reporting it to? Because I know laws are constantly changing if your data's been breached, but is there kind of an official clearinghouse for that information?
So it depends on what industry you're in, right? So, and you have to have what your internal policy is. I think that's one of the greatest things that a company can do is be prepared. We have cybersecurity advisors, CISA does, spread out across the country. Right now, we have 110 of them in almost every major city and every state across the country. If a company doesn't know where to start, these are great advisors. People can reach out and contact them. And if somebody wants to know who their cybersecurity advisor is, there's an email address. It's central@CISA.dhs.gov. And they'll put you in touch with your local cybersecurity advisor. They can help you get on the path of building the plan and building the policy and figuring out what to do in case of an incident response, and how your company should handle it. And if you're in the finance business, who you need to contact. If you're in the gas and oil business, this is your process and procedures. So there's experts across the country, and I highly advise to use them.
Yeah, I think that's great advice of plan for an event happening before it actually happens, as opposed to something happens, our system is down, who do we call, and start your work at that point. Is you're already behind the curve.
Yes. Yeah. But if it does happen, I mean, report it, and then there are some things that make sure that your coworkers know that it happened. If your company has a password policy, make sure that you change your password, or work with your IT staff and make sure that you have multi-factor authentication involved. But absolutely report it, and then let your coworkers know so they don't fall prey to the same attack.
Yeah. Do you see a increasing adoption in employees and consumers using two-factor authentication and asking for it in places where it doesn't exist?
I see them accepting it and adopting it. I haven't seen them proactively ask for it, but it's I do see, and a lot of the online community has adopted it and almost forced people to use it. So it's becoming the social norm where before it wasn't. So I'm hoping we get to the point, and a lot of security professionals like myself, we ask for it, or we look for it. But like, my wife or my dad, they're just happy with the password. I'm like, no, you need to put this on, and then they remember about two-factor authentication or multi-factor.
Yeah, I've been excited that more and more recently, when I've been creating accounts, two-factor authentication has been turned on by default as part of the account creation process, whereas it used to be, well, if you want this extra security measure, you've got to go hunt and find it. Now this is part of the setup. If you want to disable it, you've got to jump through all these hoops to disable it. And so I'm sure that really is helping the adoption.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And CISA, one of the great things that we've been striving and pushing forward, and will continue, but it started a couple years ago, is secure by design, right? Anything you put out there should have security designed into it, and should come out of the box with security. It shouldn't come with empty password. It should have something in it. Your example that you laid out of having a user have to adopt and opt into two-factor authentication is a perfect example.
Yeah, I have to admit, I still occasionally get hardware sent to me that has no use, like the username and password is user and password. I'm like, oh, but
Right.
there's definitely some stuff when it shows up. There's a sticker on it. Here's the username. Here's the password. Don't lose it or you're in trouble. So it's like, okay, there's some manufacturers that are starting to not have every single device going out their door having the same password on it.
Yeah, and I think as more and more people do that, more and more people will demand it and expect it. And when the consumers expect it, and they'll call for it, demand. And then if you get something from a vendor that it has admin or user password, you're going to question that vendor. You're like, hey, do I really need to order from that vendor, or next time do I need to get a different hardware solution?
Yeah, it really makes you question their commitment to security if the username and the password are the same for every single device going out the door.
Yeah, absolutely.
So on the consumer side, what should consumers do when they've either fallen victim to a scam or been technically exploited?
So on the consumer side, I would say stop communicating with the scammer immediately. If you're doing it over email, or you're having constant texting communication or some other communication, stop that right away. And then make sure, as we talked about, change your passwords. And if you don't have multi-factor authentication, implement it immediately. And then consider reporting the attack to the police, or maybe even filing something with the Federal Trade Commission, depending on your case. But I think those simple steps will be a good start. And then the more you, and maybe even if you have a friend that's in cyber, they can advise you to go. But I think as you start talking and you start reporting it, you'll get more information, and people will have more advice for you. But at least stop communicating with the scammer, change your passwords, and implement MFA.
Gotcha. And so maybe the more disturbing part of our conversation, where do you see threats coming from in the future? Not to say what entities are attacking us, but what are the things that we should be watching out for in the future? I think of, gosh, everything is connected these days. When you're in your office, there's the cameras, the printers, everything is connected, and then smart cars, AI, chatbots. What do you see as kind of the emerging threats?
So yeah, it's overwhelming, the amount that's coming at us. I think from my point of view, from an attacker, what I've seen happening recently is a consolidation in the cybersecurity marketplace, right? So in the past, I had like 20 vendors that I had to worry about how to get around their security. Maybe now it's a handful. So if I know it's only a handful, I could really focus, and if it's down to one or two competition, I can focus on getting around that one vendor. And if they service like 80% of the companies or populace, I could get around it. And one case in point is an attack that we do recently. It's payload. It's called payload inflation. So a payload, when you send a phishing email or a link, a payload gets distributed to the user. And what we do is we do payload inflation. So the typical payload is about 2 megabytes, maybe 1 megabyte. Well, we inflate that to be 250 megabyte. We don't send it right away when a user clicks on it or gets to the system. We wait like 10 or longer than that, but a certain amount of time, and then we download it. And it does two things: the detection isn't looking that long, and then the detection can't go through that big of a file. And with us being interconnected, right? If years ago, if we sent a 250 meg file, somebody would just disconnect and be like, I don't care about this. I'm not worried. But now I could download that in seconds to somebody. So it goes back to the resources. The protections don't have the resources to scan all 250 megs. So maybe they look at the first 50 or 100 or whatever they look at, and then we're getting in. So I'm worried about like the speed of everything. Everything's going so fast, but then do we have the speed and the architecture to actually adapt and find out everything that's going by, or inspect everything that's going by? So I think that from my defensive and offensive side, I would say that. And then where's it coming from? Is it coming from a refrigerator? Is it coming from a microwave? Or it's from somebody that clicked something? So.
Yeah, I'm amazed at when my first internet connection was it was a dial-up modem, but let's talk about dedicated internet connections. My first dedicated internet connection was a 1.5 megabit DSL connection, and now I've got fiber into the home, and what used to take like, well, gosh, I could move a DVD worth of information to and from my co-location facility in a matter of seconds now, where that used to be, well, I'm going to download this movie. Let me come back in 4 days and I'll have it.
Yeah, let me go watch 4 days of movies.
It's almost that things have kind of gotten asymmetric, not in the upload and download, but in terms of just the vast amounts of data. Is it starting to overwhelm our ability to manage it?
It is, and I think that's the point, right? How do you inspect everything, and especially my watch right here
Yeah.
is connected, and this mouse here and this lamp, and it's like wow, the threat vectors have just grown exponentially.
Do you see, is there kind of developmental community, the manufacturers are starting to see like, well, we really need to do a better job with our security on our devices. We need to do a better job providing firmware updates for years as opposed to days or weeks. Is there kind of a coordinated?
So they're getting there. CISA is leading the charge, and CISA is leading the charge of making helping to hold companies accountable and secure by design, right? So anything that you design going forward, we're actively seeking people to pledge that they'll use good coding practices, good coding languages, and so it's starting, and I think it'll be like a snowball. It's gonna start slow, but once it picks up momentum and is adopted and adapted in the training community and the education community, I think we'll see it rapidly increase.
So this might be a little bit outside your scope of expertise, but when people are buying hardware, whether it's for their companies or for themselves, should they be asking the company, well, how long are you going to provide firmware support for this product? And what would be a safe, like if they say, oh yeah, we're going to provide it for 10 years. Yeah, that's probably a good practice. But if they say, no, we're only providing it for the next 1 year, where's kind of the point where some people need to question that whether that's the right product for them to buy?
Right. Well, yeah. I think that's going to depend on how long they want to have that product on their in their environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say if they intend to have that device on their environment 15 years, they should demand from the company 15 years of firmware or product updates. If they're only going to have it there for 2 years, then that's acceptable. But I think as it goes back to the life cycle cost and
Mm-hmm.
analysis that you do on that product. So that would be my rule of thumb.
I'm just laughing to myself thinking, well, everybody keeps stuff around twice as long as they originally thought it was going to be there. So if you're planning it being in the life cycle for 2 years, you better plan for 4 or 5.
Correct. And right. And that's a great question to ask. And hopefully when you're buying, you buy from a company that's been around a while. So you can at least do some due diligence on it and see that, maybe even talk to some past vendors, or even you have some old devices on your network and you're seeing that they're being updated and taken seriously, and that they're just not left alone, or that they do have an end of life and they know how to end of life, and then work with companies to get that off and get something new on the market and in place to keep your operations running.
Turn off all those Windows 95 boxes.
Yeah, exactly.
So are there like any additional tips, any additional resources that we want to make sure that we communicate to the audience today?
Yeah, absolutely. So CISA, and one of the great things is we can tell people to create a policy, an IR plan, patch management, backups, but CISA offers free resources on our website, and free services that I'll talk about here in a second. So the best place, one of the best places I think people should start is at our website, CISA.gov, CISA.gov. And it's a great starting place. But what we did, we just launched a effort called Secure Our World. So you can visit that site at CISA.gov/secure-our-world. And this site has information on how to secure yourself and your family, actually how to secure your business, and then how to secure your products. And then if you dig down deeper, there's information on how to teach employees to avoid phishing. So there's a link there. So then it would be CISA.gov secure-our-world/teach-employees-avoid-phishing. And so that's like under the umbrella of our Secure Our World. It's a great program. and it's new to our cybersecurity awareness program. In addition, I talked about the cybersecurity advisors. There's 110 of them out there. You can reach them through the email central@cisa.dhs.gov. And third, and this is, I want to pound my chest here. So these are services that come from my program. We offer free vulnerability scanning. So if you're a company out there that has assets hosted on the internet, we will scan them persistently and provide you with a weekly report. And the weekly report will show you what vulnerabilities we see on there, which vulnerabilities you've closed. We'll rank them. We'll tell you if they're known exploitable vulnerabilities, if they're critical, if they're medium, high, low, criticality level, and then we'll show you charts over time if you're fixing those vulnerabilities. And it's easy to sign up for. If you email vulnerability@cisa.dhs.gov and ask about our vulnerability scanning service, you'll get a response and information on how to sign up. And to me, that's one of the best things that CISA has. We have over 6,300 stakeholders that take advantage of that service right now, and we'd love to have 6,300 more.
I was about to say, in about 5 minutes, you'll have 6,301.
All right.
That sounds like a really cool program, because it's one of those things. It's like, I don't, some people don't trust the government, but I would rather trust a government entity to help with the scanning as opposed to, hey, let me go to this random website of, sketchy partner or sketchy entity that I don't know where they're from. I don't know that I want to raise my head up and say, hey, take a look at my surfaces and see if I'm safe.
Right. So this is great because I've always contemplated that, and I'm always like, So I was at a speaking event for 911 centers last week, and I was with a gentleman from Region 5. We break the United States up into 10 different regions, and this gentleman was from Region 5, and he was sitting next to me. And he was asked that question, and he had a great answer. He said, well, foreign countries and governments are scanning your government anyway. So do you trust them? You can't stop them, but you can allow your federal government to help you. Obviously, we need a legal agreement. So what's one more government scanning you, but we're doing it for good for you.
Yeah. We're going to give you the reports. They're not going to give you the reports.
Exactly.
And for the listeners, we'll put all of these links in the show notes. That way, in case you missed a hyphen, you don't get a 404 error, but that it's the easy to find. Anything else before we wrap up here, Robert?
No, that's it. I really appreciate you having me there. I appreciate CISA allowing me to have this interview with you and join your podcast. And I look forward to people signing up and going to our website and joining the Secure Our World cybersecurity awareness program that we just launched.
Awesome, Rob. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you.